Thank you all for coming. This is through Delaware Library. I'm Rachel Kluke, and this is Nita Sweeney. She's here to talk about her book, actually both of her books, and how running can help you with mental health, and also answer any writing questions that you have. And thank you so much for coming. This is the first time I've hosted a virtual program, so I'm excited.
Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate first the library asking me months and months ago when we thought this would be a live event, and then being willing to take it to Zoom, once the live events didn't work. So yeah, I really just appreciate it. So because what's happened as a result of the book coming out is that I've sort of turned into a bit of a mental health advocate, kind of an accidental mental health advocate. And so it's at the place where anything I can do, any place I can talk about that, just makes me so happy. Of course, it makes my publisher really happy too, because people might buy books, but in my heart, it's about helping people. So, well, there's Liz. Oh my goodness, there's all these people. Yeah. Hey, Liz. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to try to share my screen because I have a little PowerPoint thing. So we'll see how this goes. Okay. There we go. All right. So, all right, this is me. Now, can you guys see, I know you can see everything on the left, but you can see the big, can people see the PowerPoint? Rachel's nodding. Okay, that's good. Yeah. All right. So I am award-winning author Nita Sweeney, and this is my talk about exercising my way to mental health. So let's start with some stats. More than 300 million people worldwide suffer from depression, and those numbers are probably much higher because these are numbers from probably a couple of years ago, and I didn't update the research for this presentation. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness. 40 million adults in the supposed to be United States and 18.1% of the population every year. Hypochondria affects 6% of the population. Approximately 30% of the world's population is obese or overweight. 53% of the population is unhappy. And 10 to 15% of grieving people will become depressed. So this was me in 2000, probably 2008, 2009, and I was all of those things. I'd had a situation where in the year 2000, 7 people I loved, including my niece, my father-in-law, and eventually at the very end, my mother died, and my niece's cat also died. It was just crazy. So I was already suffering from chronic depression. I'm bipolar. I was on tons of meds, and I've been everything from a size 0 to a 22, and this was, this picture's like toward the top of that scale. But I was sitting on my sofa one day with my laptop, scrolling social media. This would have been in 2010. And I saw a post from a high school friend, and it said, "Call me crazy, but this running is getting to be fun." And I thought, you have got to be kidding me. Now, I'd had people tell me that exercise helped with their anxiety, with their depression, with their mania, with their mood swings, with everything. But I was so tired and so depressed that I would just shrug it off and, reach for another box of whatever treat I was, currently sedating myself with. But for some reason, when my friend posted that, it was somebody I could completely relate to. She was at least as large as me at that time, as I was at the time. She was a year older than me. I'd known her almost my entire life. Neither one of us had ever been athletic, and she was running. So I let that sit for a while, And after a few months, kind of when spring started to roll around, I saw the crocuses pop up, and there was the signs of life. I went and I looked up the running plan, Couch to 5K, and it said 60 seconds of jogging. Now, if it had said 60 seconds of running or anything like that, I probably would have just said forget it. But something about the word jogging was soft enough that I was like, okay, I'll try. So I picked up a digital kitchen timer and I leashed up our dog, Morgan, and off we went to this ravine that's down by our house. Because even though it was the middle of the day on a weekday, and I live in a neighborhood where nobody was home, I was convinced they would see me and they would laugh. And so I went down to this ravine, and you can't really see the ravine, it's on the side, but and Morgan and I jogged for 60 seconds. There he is, he was such a cute dog. We jogged for 60 seconds. So that's kind of how it started. And then very soon after, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my husband, my sister. My sister is kind of my closest friend, and because I was afraid I would disappoint them, that this would be one more thing like the mini trampoline and the aerobics classes and the diets and the pills and all that stuff. So I just started this Couch to 5K program. And then eventually I made the mistake of telling my sister. Now, this is the woman whose daughter had died. My niece was her only child. She died of cancer in 2007. So we were both, this was a couple years later, but we're both still grieving. I have several nieces and nephews, but this one was the one that I was, lived closest to. I'm closest to my sister. So that was hard. And my sister said, gee, there's this 5K that's raising money for the type of cancer, that my niece had. And I said, oh, no. I'm a private runner. We don't run in public. This is not what I do. So I let that sit for a while. And then eventually I said, okay, Nita, you're going to have to get over yourself. Think about what Jamie went through. And so I ran my first 5K. And that was in September. I started running in March. That was in September. And I got hooked on the race bug. And I am an off the scale introvert. So I'm not, right now when everybody's been concerned about not being able to go places, I'm like, whew, thank goodness. So it was very weird, but there's something about the race environment. As you can tell, I'm pretty much dead last here because everybody else is out of the picture, already finished. I caught that bug. And then Ed joined, that's my husband, Ed, the 100% good husband. And of course, Morgan ran too. We did some running together. And then eventually I joined a running group because I started hearing about people who were running longer distances. I'd gotten in some online groups. I'd gotten the support. And so I joined this crazy group, Marathoner in Training. And in 2011, I ran my first half marathon. So it was quite a journey. It's been quite a journey. And Ed has always been at my side. That is my favorite sweatshirt. It says, sorry, the sky is taken by a sexy running wife or something like that. I bought it for him, and yes, he wears it. So, and then, it's not really a spoiler because I do call this my Couch to Marathon story. But in 2012, I ran the Columbus Marathon, and that's my picture. And there's a great thread in the book about how I saw a 26.2 sticker on someone's car before I'd even run my first 5K. And And so I talk about that a lot, about how I saw that sticker and thought, you know, could I ever do that? And it turned out to be a friend of mine's car at this event we were at. And I asked him, he was much younger and, you know, one of those people that really looked like a runner, tall, thin, wiry guy. And he was so kind. He said, if you train for it, why not? And so eventually that's what I did. And I am nothing if not ever so slightly obsessive. So this is what happened. I'm now a half fanatic. I've run 3 full marathons and 27, I think, half marathons in 18 states. So the half fanatics they like count how many they've done. And I'm also like a 50-stater where I try to do that. And I was really on a journey to get all the 50 states. And then 2 things happened, which I want to talk about that in a minute. First off, the book happened, and writing that story and then having the marketing and things like that to do, that happened. And then, of course, Ed got sick, and then we had the pandemic. So all of those things have just sort of kept everything. I've stopped trying, you know, traveling at all, but I still do a few virtual races. I didn't put a picture of this in here, but there was an amazing unicorn medal that I just could not resist. And so I had to sign up for that virtual race. And then our local group, Marathoner in Training, the Fleet Feet store here in town, here in Columbus, is the sponsor of that. And they had a running is not canceled, which that was just amazing. They had a whole group. Because that's one of the things when you're depressed, anxious, anything like that, it's very easy to get isolated. And so that's a lot of what running did for me. Once I started, even before I joined a physical group, I got online and joined this group called the Penguins, which I'm not even sure you can access it anymore because it was on an old website. But I would just lurk there and watch them talk about racing and running and shoes and equipment and all that, you know, the feeling that they got. So it was the actual physical endorphins. It was the community that I joined. It was that sense of accomplishment of printing out a little schedule and then checking things off of, yes, I did this. I said I was going to run this distance, and yes, I did. And all that combined changed me. And it was really pretty quickly after I started running, within a few, maybe like 6 weeks, friends would start asking me things like, did you get your hair cut? I mean, it was just this weird, they couldn't figure out what I was doing because I hadn't told anybody. Or what did you like, do you have a new therapist? Are you on a different med? You know, things like that. And it was the running. It really was. I'm very, very careful not to say that it was a cure. I still take medication, but at one point I was on 6 different meds, and now I'm on 1. And I also do a form of therapy called neurofeedback. And I haven't actually done that lately because they had to stop it because of the pandemic. But I will probably start that again. And, you know, I have a therapist, all that kind of thing. But it feels as if running gave me this extra level of energy that I didn't have. And it's such an oxymoron, or feels like it doesn't make any sense. How could going out and exhausting yourself give you energy? It just doesn't make any sense. And that's what I kept hearing when people would talk about their exercise. I would think, oh my gosh, you play tennis? How can that help? You take yoga? How can that help? I mean, I just was so mentally tired. And so when people asked me about that, I said, remember, I started by running 60 seconds. 60 seconds. It was just this tiny little bit of time. And then walking, you know, which I was even having trouble doing then. And it really changed things. It just very gradually changed things. And it's interesting because you don't ever quite arrive someplace. I mean, there was a point, especially with some of the marathons, where after the race, I would have a huge crash because you do this whole build up. And so the cure is to sign up for another race, which is kind of kind of difficult right now. These virtual races are great, but that's not the same as being, you know, going someplace, even if it's local, and having all the kind of festivities and things of the running. So, you know, so the thing that I keep coming back to is that starting small. When Ed was sick, I stopped running altogether. He required my care. He just required my care 24 hours a day, really. And so for a couple months, I didn't run at all. I would walk sometimes. And so I had to start back almost at ground zero. And now, you know, this weekend I ran 8 miles. So it doesn't take you very long once you get back into it. But it definitely mentally felt like I was starting from scratch. So this is a statistic I found. 30 minutes or more of exercise 3 to 5 days a week significantly improved depression or anxiety symptoms. And even 10 minutes at a time makes a difference. And it says may. I would say it does make a difference. So yeah, I was thinking, let's see, let me go back into Zoom here for a second here. Let me stop the share. Okay, so we got in the chat, yes, okay, somebody's agreeing with me. Yay, always like that. So yeah, so I was going to, I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and talk about the writing process, and then I'll take all the questions kind of at the end, because I'm afraid, unless everybody just wants to talk about running and mental health, it seems like I had kind of a mix of people that wanted to hear a little bit about both. So I was going to, is that, Rachel, does that sound good? I hear you, see you nodding. Okay, good. Yeah, because I was going to talk about how the heck did this book come about. And then I'll take questions at the end, because I love, you know, having that conversation. So, okay, so I'll go back to this, sharing the screen. Okay, look at this. I'm actually doing this. Wow. All right, so the writing process. I've written for many, many years. And I've been teaching writing. I have an MFA. I've shopped other books trying to get a publisher for them. And this was the first one, this Depression Needs Moving Target, was the first one I actually sold. So in November, they had this thing called National Novel Writing Month, which a lot of the libraries actually participate in, where they have write-ins. It's a worldwide challenge. And the theory is that you write 50,000 words of fiction in the month of November. I've done fiction, I've done nonfiction, I've done a little bit of everything. So after I had run the marathon, I started thinking that people might be interested in hearing about a middle-aged woman who is essentially not athletic, who has mental health issues, and takes up running and eventually runs marathon. So it was sort of like a couch to marathon story. And so during November of 2012, I did that. I wrote 50,000 words. At that time, the book was called 26 Point Freakin' 2, which I still think is a good title, but Depression Hates a Moving Target is a much better title. So I did that. And I would do the revision then. This is Collins Coffee, my auxiliary office. And that's what it looks like a lot of times, with these crazy notes all over the place and things like that. Because the first draft was 197,000 words. So I did that 50,000, and then I kept writing because the story wasn't done. So the book, this book, is 78,000 words. So I had to get from 197,000 words to 78,000 words. And what happened in that process, as I was revising, was I realized that it was not a story about a middle-aged woman who takes up running. The story was actually about a woman who was trying not to die. Because it wasn't like I forgot how bad it was, but when I went back through my old journals, talked to people, you know, started going through to do the research, because even when you write memoir or any kind of nonfiction, you still have to get the facts right. I mean, you especially have to get the facts right, but even if it's memoir, you have to, you know, I have to make sure it's true. So I realized that this was actually a mental health story. And that's when the title change happened later, but that's when I knew that 26 Point Freakin' 2 wasn't really gonna cut it for the title. So, so that's kind of part of the process. And then the other part of the process is this guy and the dog. This is the different dog, but this is Scarlet. But every single draft that I did, he read. Every single draft, and there were a lot of them. And I hired an editor. I had that I paid. I had beta readers. Some were runners, some were writers, some were neither. So I had a kind of a smattering of all of to get different perspectives. And once I felt like I had a draft I was proud of, I also took a marketing class to write, learn how to write the query letter and the synopsis and the proposal and all of that. And finally, I started pitching. And this is what it looks like. So I started with agents. I had a plan where I started with thinking I was going to self-publish it. And then I talked to my friend Tanya, who's an editor and a great writer. And she's British. And she said to me, she goes, Nita, if what you wanted was simply a book with your name on the cover, you would have done that years ago. And I had to admit she was right. I really wanted it to be, I wanted a publisher to take it, buy it, all that stuff. So I sent pitches to 108 agents. As you can see, 55 of those are still out. I received interest from 3 of them, which means they wanted to read the book. And I eventually got 50 negative replies. So the numbers don't completely match up because sometimes you get a positive response and then a rejection, or you get a positive response and you hear nothing, because usually what you heard was nothing. So that was part A, try to get an agent. So after a period of time when I didn't get an agent, I moved on to part B, or step B, which was to try to get a publisher, because not all publishers require agents. The big houses require agents, the HarperCollins, the Macmillan, the big names that you hear, they require agents. So there are tons and tons of smaller publishers that don't require agents. So I went that route and tried to find a publisher. And I sent out 134 queries. And this was over a period of many months. I think it was probably a year and a half the whole process took. And the interesting thing is I'm still getting rejection letters. Every once in a while, I'll get a rejection letter. Last week, I got a rejection letter. It was very nice, very sweet. And I was like, thank you. Here's the link to where you can buy the book. Yeah, love, Nita. No, I'm not that snarky. But it is funny. I mean, it's just not for them. It's just not they're not the right house. You have to find the right people. So, so finally, in August of 2018, I found I was at, if there were 100 points or ticks in each of my plan A, B, C, and C would have been to self-publish, I was at B 99. So I had already started researching, hybrid and self-publishers, and was finding good options, lots of really good options, and was ready to go that route. And then I found this publisher I'd never heard of called Mango, and they had no submission guidelines at that time on their website. They were really new. I think they were like 5 years old at that time. And so I got on their contact form and I emailed them, and ended up in a conversation with this woman named Brenda Knight. And after it was a couple, like a month and a half, 2 months, some different stuff happened. I got this email, which it's how there's moments that just feels like your life changes forever. Finishing that finish line in a marathon was one of them. And then this was the other one. Well, that and when my husband proposed to me. But this was, this email that said, yes, we want to move forward and publish your book. I just screamed. I mean, I was like sitting in my office chair going, ah, You know, and it's like, what? So, yeah. And then the fun began. You know, it's not just like they just hand you the book then. So we had revisions, and then after you send the book to them, there's the marketing machine starts, and it's pretty crazy. So, so this is this is the final. You know, this was like a set of the final edits where you can see all the changes I had to make, and all that kind of crazy stuff. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you about is I'm a little bit, I don't know if I'm officially diagnosed OCD. I don't think anybody's actually said that, but I definitely have some very compulsive tendencies. I think you kind of have to run long distances and maybe also to be a writer, but I keep a book journal. So that is the book, and that stack is the book journal. They're handwritten pages. I have one for every book I've written, whether they're published or not. And they're just notes about what I did that day. And that was, that stack represents sometime in 2011, where I first started making notes about writing a book about running, to April of 2019, which is when we were in Los Angeles for the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books, and I could no longer keep up with it. And so now it's digital. I still have it, but it's digital because I just couldn't. It was like I was trying to schlep it around on airplanes, and it was just not, you know, I wouldn't take the whole thing. I'd take like 20 pages, but I couldn't. It didn't work anymore. So it's digital now, which is actually better because I can search for stuff, because I have to go back and go, did I do that? You know, so so that's kind of always interesting. And then on May 15th of 2019, I got my author, actually it was before that, it was like the end of April, I got my author copies. So there I am with my blurry photo. And then, I just have to tell you this because it's so hysterical. This just shows you who he is. When you read the book, you'll see who he is. But so I get my author copies, get this 2 cases of, you know, books for me, free, well, free, but you know. And I went away, I come back, okay, so Ed has read every single draft. I come back, I come home, he's sitting on the sofa reading the book from page 1 again. So he's just something else. So anyway, there he is with his copy, and the dog. You can see part of the dog, yeah. So the book has been doing well. This is an older one, but it was a #1 new release. It's hit the #1. It's gotten a #1 bestseller badge. And I'll tell you a little bit about Amazon. These badges are lovely, but nobody completely knows how you get them. What they mean is that your book sold the most copies in a particular category during a particular period of time. Now the categories, they will tell you, like my book has they call it badging. It has badged in 3 categories many times. So bipolar is the #1 category. It badges in all the time, both the ebook and the paperback. It also has badged in depression, and it's also badged in, I think it's called running and sports, or running and jogging, I think actually it's called. So those are the 3 categories. And Mango puts it in the categories, and it's kind of a gamble. They put them in, they hope to find a category that the book, you know, should be in, but also is small enough so that there's not a lot of competition. So it's you know, I get these badges and they're great and they're fantastic, but it's not like the New York Times bestseller list. So, so it keeps badging. It just badged again, was that yesterday and Friday. I keep getting the #1 bestseller badge in bipolar, so by far the category that it does the best in. And it's a book for people who have mental health. Well, it's a book for a lot of people, but the story is about somebody who has mental health challenges, and how, you know, I went from somebody who had panic attacks and had trouble driving on the freeway to somebody who, you know, in February I spent 5 days in the Bay Area driving over the Golden Gate Bridge and the Bay Bridge, and you know, not even thinking a thing about it. I mean, that's kind of crazy. And I can't say that all of that is attributable to running, but I think a lot of it is, because I just kept doing things I was afraid of, facing things I was afraid of. And especially with the publishing process. I mean, that's been just, you know, I have not had a regular job because of my mental health issues for many, many years. And so to have somebody who's like a boss, that's been a real challenge. And, you know, I really think the showing up every day, putting your shoes on and doing that thing has really helped me be able to do that. So, so this woman right here, I call her my fairy godmother. That is Brenda Knight, who dropped out of the sky, waved her magic wand, and made me a published author. And in December, she invited me to help her with a project. She had the idea for a project, but she said, and she's an author too, but she said it's really a writer's project, and it's something, you know, she had the idea, but she needed somebody to really execute it. So in just last week, this came out. So this is our new writing journal, and it's You Should Be Writing. It is a book of, essentially, it's blank pages, but at the top of each page is an author quote, and then there's a foreword by a woman named Becca Anderson. It's another Mango author. And then my introduction, which is about 3 pages, and then my conclusion. And then at the beginning of each chapter is a tiny little, I'm calling them micro essays. I mean, some of them are just that small, just a little micro essay, because they're all, the quotes are organized by topic. So they're, it's like, you know, writing tips from the greats, accessing your well of creativity, the art of storytelling, the craft of writing, read your way in, things like that. So they're all the quotes are organized by topic. And then the idea is that the quotes on the left side of the page are inspirational, and the quotes on the right side of the page are instructional. So the two of us together compiled them, and then I organized them, and we put them in this pretty package. So that just came out. And let's see. I've got 3 more slides here. I'll just go through those, and then we can do questions or whatever else you have. So everybody always asks this, so I'll just answer. Dear Morgan, aka Mr. Dog, died at a very old age. He had a very good life in 2017, and we ended up getting Scarlett, this little girl. And this is the ravine where I started running. So I take her down there now. So that's she and I down in the ravine. And she's a gem, except for the fact that she eats everything, like anything and everything, a lot, all the time. So she has her own hashtag on, you know, Twitter and other social media. It's all spelled out, hashtag 99% good dog. No numbers, just all the letters, 99% good dog, because she's so bad. But she's cute. She's really cute. So, and then the last pitch I'll make is that authors love book reviews. I did not know this, how important they were, until I got published. And I don't even think my first book had been out a week. And the marketing director was sending me an email saying, we need reviews, you need to ask your friends, you need to, and I was like, okay. So, so if you have an author you read, please go on, whether it's Goodreads, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any of the sites, the publisher's website, where they will let you review the book. And you don't even have to say anything, just give it a rating, or just say loved it, or, you know, would read again, whatever. And if you didn't like it, that's fine too, I understand. I tend to not review books that, if I don't like them, I just review books that I do enjoy. That's just the way I am, but that's up to you. But I have to put that plug in because I really did not know how important they were until I was an author myself. So this is where you can always find me. I'm at nitasweeney.com, and I'm on all the social media channels a lot. In fact, I was on Twitter so much the last 2 days that they won't let me follow anybody for 3 days because I followed too many people and they thought I was a bot. So, oops. because we're like in a big promo push for the new book. That's part of what you do. You get on social media and you talk a lot and you share articles, you share other people's articles, and it's really very busy. So, all right, I will stop this screen share, and I'm going to actually put the buy links in the chat. Although you can get them at the library. Hint, hint. I know that the libraries here have Depression, AIDS, and Moving Target. I'm not sure if they have the writing journal for two reasons. One, because it is a journal, so it's meant to be written in. But sometimes they do that anyway, because it's also a reference book because it has all the quotes in it. And it's just so new that we haven't, normally, like, I would go to the library, take the book, take the sell sheet, and we haven't been able to do that. So that's it. So I will put, let's see here, let me get this. Oh, there we are. I will just put this in the chat, and then if you're interested, oops, what am I doing? Here we go. Okay. There they all are. Okay. Now I put the Amazon affiliate links in just because that's where it's like the easiest, but don't feel like you have to buy it from there. Please buy it wherever you like it. I know the Book Loft has at least 2 signed copies of Depression, AIDS, and Moving Target. The Barnes & Noble at Kingsdale did, but it closed. So those books are somewhere in town. I'm betting they're probably at Easton now. So, so anyway, so yeah, so I think we should probably open it up to questions if anybody has a question. Rachel, how do you want to do that? Should I just unmute everybody, or since there's looks like there's 10 of us total? I think I'll do that. I'll just unmute everybody.
Good idea.
I think I can do that. Hello. Okay, basically you have to unmute yourselves. So if you have a question, you just unmute yourself and let's chat. Okay. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah. Or Dot, if you're not a chatty person, like verbally, just put it in the chat if you have a question. I'm happy to answer anything. So, all right, no questions. Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's very sweet. Thanks a lot. Yeah, like I said, it's the process has really turned me into a bit of an advocate because I knew my story, but until I had the book out there and I started, oh, it's not allowing you to unmute. Well, I will. There. Try now. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Apparently I have to, it says allow. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, oh yeah, what I was saying was I started hearing other people's stories, and that made me realize not only was I not alone, but that it was important to tell my story, not just in the book form, but to like actually be out there saying, okay, what you see is not always what you get, if that makes sense. I can show up on a Tuesday and then Wednesday I have to go for a run, stay home, and that's just who I am. And so it was about like dispelling myths, things like that. So yeah.
I just wanted to say that, and I might cry.
Anyways, I run with Faith. She's in marathoner in training. Yay!
Yay! I remember after one of our runs, we went and we had breakfast. And we sat next to each other, and I felt a connection with you because I'm going through, or I have gone through a lot of the same things that you have, Nita. And you're just an inspiration. And I'm really sorry I'm crying.
Hey, I'm crying too. I just have glasses on, so they're fogging up. But
rough day today. Anyways,
oh, I'm sorry.
Your book really does give hope to people, and some of the things that you write about were just, you could tell that they were from the heart, and I can only imagine some of it was hard to read, and I can only imagine how hard it was to write it, to put it on paper. But I want to thank you for giving a voice to all of us who suffer from the similar things that you do, because you put it out there and you were brave, and it makes everybody else who reads it brave too. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That's, I can't tell you how much that means. That's it right there. That means everything. Thank you. I'm just glad that it's helping people, and I'm so glad that I got to know you too. We need to get to know each other a little bit more. With that, the problem is that with pandemic, it's like our group hasn't been able to meet. I mean, people are doing some social distancing run, but I've been extra particular, partly because of my own anxiety, but my husband was really, really sick, and so I'm extra protective of him. And I miss those group runs where, you know, because you spend that much time with somebody, and man,
hours.
You get to know them. Yeah, hours and hours. Okay, let's see. Do we have any? Let's see. Let's see if we have any question. Took away every excuse not to do it. That's good. I'm reading that. Yeah, that is the truth. Okay, any other questions or comments, or just maybe somebody wants to talk about their story or their journey or anything? Yeah, go ahead. Let's see. Liz, yeah.
Hi, Nita.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
It's good to see you. And I, like everyone else, I just absolutely adored your book. It was like everyone said, very touching, and I could relate to so much of what you said, and that your honesty and your candor of sharing things was just really inspirational. So I go to workshops, like I go to the Iowa Writers Workshop for like the last 3 summers, but the summer was canceled. But and maybe it's in your new book, as far as the discipline of is it a discipline? Like, I write every day, but sometimes I feel like I'm on autopilot, and I'm just wondering if it's like running, like you just suit up and show up, even if you're just writing words over and over. I guess I don't know how to do the discipline.
Yes, I don't necessarily believe in discipline. I believe in structure. So because I think I think there is a thing called discipline, and it is a good thing, but I think I'm just the kind of person that is sort of, don't you tell me what to do, don't you ever tell, you know, it's sort of my personality. It's a little bit of a, might be even borderline-ish, I'm not sure, we don't use that word, but there's definitely a twitch with that. So so what I use is structure. It's taking classes, like the Iowa workshop's fantastic, and having other people to be accountable to. So whether it's a writing group, whether it's just one other accountability partner where you're both working on a project and you say, okay, in 2 months, I'm going to have 30 pages for you. Or next week, I'm going to have 3 pages for you. And you make the promise, and that helps. I'm really good at getting those first drafts down, but I need a deadline to help me with revision, with this process, the process of that. So contests are great for that. Even, especially, there's lots of free contests, but even if it's, you know, $10, and even if you know you won't win, it's like, okay, the contest deadline is, I mean, that's the way it works with running. You sign up for this race, you've got $70 or whatever invested, and sometimes a plane ticket. It's like, gee, I better put the miles in. So it's very similar with writing. It's like, okay, I've got this, you know, this deadline, and there's a thing called Submittable, S-U-B-M. I don't know if you've heard of that. Let's see if I can remember. Put it in the chat. Submittable is a place you can look up and then do a trope. So those are submission places. I put them in the chat, and I don't know if you know, but if you go in the chat on the right-hand side at the bottom, there's 3 little dots. If you click more, it'll let you save the chat, which will give everybody a chance to do before they finish, because it's got some links in it you might want. So yeah, somebody mentioned Still I Run. That's a Facebook group, and it's a nonprofit, and it's also a Facebook group, Still I Run. Sasha Wolf is amazing, and she started that for people who run for mental health issues. But people are starting to do other exercise on there too, like biking and other things like that. But it's sort of, again, accountability group. So there's lots of Facebook groups. I have on my website a list of the writing groups. So if you go to nitasweeney.com, and then it's right now Columbus. Let's see. You just Google that. That'll come up for the local groups. But most of them are meeting on Zoom now. I mean, that's the other thing. Meetup.com, because everything's pretty much still meeting on Zoom at this point. The places are opening up, but a lot of Zoom groups. That's another place to find accountability partners. And I'm trying to think, Ohio Writers Guild. I mean, if you just go onto, really Facebook is the place for the groups. I try to kind of not be on Facebook as much anymore for a lot of different reasons, but there's groups there, and you can get involved in one of those and try to find, because what you want is an accountability partner, somebody who's doing something. It doesn't have to even be the same writing as you do, but if either of you have, well, you can do it with Facebook Messenger now, but you can have like study hall where you say, okay, this Sunday, let's meet at 3 o'clock. I'll send you a Facebook message and we'll turn our cameras on and we're going to write for 2 hours. I'll already have my beverage. I'll already have my snacks. And I'm going to be on camera, muted for 2 hours. Let's write. And you can either do that with like writing practice, where you get a topic, you go for a particular period of time and then read aloud with no comment. You could do it with critique. Oh yeah, somebody mentioned Moms Run This Town, Black Girls Run, if you're African American, although I think at this point they're open. There's Black Men Run. There's all the running stores in town have groups. Some of them require you to pay, some of them don't. MRTT and SRTT are completely free, and you don't have to have, it's Moms Run This Town, but they have Sisters Run This Town. So you don't have to have, human or animal children, either one. You can be a person without either type of child. Yeah, people are putting great stuff in the chat. Thank you. And, but as far as the group, for me, it's the accountability and the structure. And then I had to write for many, many years, just writing practice, and then go back and reread my notebooks to figure out. My main teacher is Natalie Goldberg, who wrote a book called Writing Down the Bones, and she talks about your obsession. She said you reread those notebooks, and two things happens. One, you figure out what you're interested in, not what you think you're interested in, but what you keep coming back to again and again and again. And second, what happens is as you're reading, you start reading yourself whining. And you think, ugh. And the next time you're writing, you start writing and you start whining and you go, oh God, I have to read this again later. Can I write about something else? And then you it transforms you. There's nothing wrong with whining in the notebook or anywhere really, but rereading it really does help. So I hope that's helpful. That's been my process. Taking classes, also finding, like the class I teach, the next class that I'm going to teach will be in August through Upper Arlington's Lifelong Learning. And it's a Zoom class now, so anybody can take it from anywhere. It's writing practice. That's what we teach, is the Natalie Goldberg style writing practice. But there's tons of classes. Gotham is another good place to take classes. I'm going to put Gotham in there. They're called writing workshops. And then Writing Down the Bones. Those are two of my favorites because you meet people. And so you take a class, maybe you learn something, maybe you don't, but you see somebody across the room and you think, I liked what she wrote. I like the way she's approaching this. I like how she thinks. I like what she's, there's something about her. And so you get her email and you say, hey, can we maybe exchange some work or maybe set up a study hall date, and because writers need that structure. And then if she doesn't, she's not your person. You figure that out. But same thing with runners. If if they leave you in the dust, they're not your runners. You know, and that's just the way it is. You find the people that are running your pace, and then you find the people that are at your place in the process. So I like to be comfortable. And one thing about writing especially is that you have to get uncomfortable sometimes. And so a lot of what I have trouble with is just resistance. It's just the discomfort of getting started. I think it's probably true with running too. That's, you know, so let's see. Somebody says, okay, the ebook and audio is here on Overdrive. Yay. Order ebooks and audio from the library and Ohio Digital Library. Yay. Depression Hits Moving Target. Yay. Thank you so much, Rachel. That's great. Yeah, because not everybody wants to buy it. I completely understand that. But if you read it, leave me a review whether you bought it or not. Because you can do that. On Goodreads, they rank them all the same, no matter where you bought it. On Amazon, they'll still let you review it. They just put it like in a different category. It still counts though. So anything. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. So, okay. I'm blathering on. I've forgotten what the question was. There was something about writing or running and dogs or something. I don't know. French fries. Yeah. Today I posted, I'm on social media a lot just because that's what I have to do. I don't necessarily enjoy it as much, but today I posted, because people always ask you, well, what do you think about when you're running? And well, Ed went to Legacy Barbecue and got brisket and macaroni and cheese. And so I'm out there running 4 miles thinking, brisket, macaroni and cheese, brisket, macaroni and cheese. So yeah. All right, any other questions? We're really almost at the end of our time here. So what do you think, Rachel?
Would you recommend, like you said something about an accountability partner for writing. Would you recommend having one for running if possible?
Oh yeah. I actually love running alone. Again, I'm kind of a weirdo because I'm very much an introvert. And so I was very surprised at how much I like running with other people. Now, I'm also extremely moody. So Faith knows this, where we have this group. We'll show up on Saturday, I'll chat for 5 minutes with everybody. And then I'll either, depending on how I'm feeling, I'll like run ahead or hang way behind, or maybe find like one person to run with. Because that's the thing about running. Even if you're running in a group, the trails aren't that wide. So you can only really run 2 by 2. So you're only like talking to one other person. But having that, again, a structure. So if it's a running partner, the thing about that is it's really important to run your own pace. And so it's hard to find running partners because it's hard to find just one other person that's exactly your pace. That's a great thing about Marathoner in Training here in Columbus, is because they have, it's so big. And I don't know how big Columbus Running Company is, but I know they have pace groups too. But Marathoner in Training, I mean, they have everything from like the 7-minute milers to our groups, which is like 14 run walk, and the walkers. And even though we're 14 run walk, I mean, right now I'm running like 17-minute miles because I'm trying to do low heart rate training to keep my heart rate. So I'm mostly walking. I do intervals where I'm walking a lot, longer than I'm actually running, because I'm just trying to keep my heart rate so low. But yes, definitely. So that was a really long answer to a short question. The answer is yes. Yes. Right. See if there's anybody else in the chat. I don't see anything else in the chat. This is the last. Oh, Shelly says, I'm halfway through the book. Yay. Yay for reviews. Thank you. Thanks. I hope it, she says she's halfway through. I hope it continues to carry. That's the hardest part of the book, is like the middle. And then that middle part is, they call it the muddle of the middle, because you, it's rough to get it right. So, well, thank you for being such a great audience here listening. And yeah, thanks so much for being here. And thanks again. Oh, my ankle. How's my ankle? You know, my ankle's good. I have, in the book, I talk a lot about my wonky ankle. It still swells up and it still hurts sometimes. And you know, a friend of mine who read the book, one of Grace, Faith probably knows Grace, and she asked me one day at breakfast, we used to go after breakfast, you know, we will again, after our runs, and she said to me, she goes, so what did you do with your wonky ankle? And I said, I ran 3 full marathons, 27 half marathons, and 100 shorter races. So in other words, I didn't really do anything. I still elevate it from time to time. I still use, there's like this blue kind of thing, some kind of essential oil thing I use from time to time. Sometimes I wrap it, but mostly it swells up when anything changes. So like when I didn't run for a while and then I started running again. I think, oh, Jan, is she still here? I think she asked something about that. Where was that at? Something about, oh, online support group. Yeah, still I run. Somebody asked that. But anyway, oh, period where we aren't running together. What differences does that bring in terms of mental health? Yeah. Okay, so so I'll get to the physical first. And yeah, it's stubborn. She says, I personify persistence. Stubborn is actually, thank you. Thank you. But yeah, so anytime anything changes, that's when it'll swell. So I go from spring to summer and from tied shoes to sandals, it'll start swelling. The weather is cold and then it gets warm, it'll swell. And then it goes back down. So what I've learned is not to panic. It's not broken. It's not, doesn't even hurt really most of the time. It just swells. So I just try to get the swelling to go down. I take a little bit of ibuprofen. I try not to take too much of that. And yeah, that's what I did. And then she asked about the mental health difference with not running with people. And to me, that's not as much of a big deal because I am such an introvert and I'm so connected online in a lot of ways and just so busy right now with all the book stuff. So it doesn't, but I definitely miss the runners. And there is a social component with being in a running group that I definitely miss. I mean, there's the laughter, the hearing the heartfelt stories. I mean, when my husband came home from the hospital, he was in the hospital 3 times in like, I don't know, 2 months or whatever. When he came home from the hospital, a small group of the runners made like marathon signs and showed up at our door, socially distanced in the yard with their like, go Ed signs. I mean, who does that? You know, that kind of stuff. And somebody dies, we all show up at the funeral. If somebody's parent dies, that one of the runners' fathers died, we all show up. You know, that kind of stuff. It really is kind of a family. So, so yeah, that, it's only been a few months now. So, and Ed and I were kind of in this home healthcare bubble, a bit of it, because he was sick. And, you know, I was with him in the hospital and then I couldn't go in the hospital, but I was home. And then he was home and was just, you know, I mean, he couldn't stand up and he was on a gastric feeding too. It was just, it was really, really crazy. And like I said, he's doing so much better. So I feel like we're like 6 weeks behind everybody. So I haven't really felt, I keep checking on my extroverted friends because they're the ones that are really hard. Yeah, so that's my perspective. Though Jan, I don't know if you want to say something about that. I can unmute you if you wanted to say something. I can't see you though. She's still here, but yeah. Okay, well, she can put something in the chat if she wants to talk about that. So. But yeah, it's a good point. It's for some people, you know, people are just different. We're just not all the same. So what works for me is not going to work for everybody else. But I'm going to read you the very last paragraph, and this is how we can end. Usually I read more from the book, but I just felt like talking tonight. So, okay, so this is the very last paragraph. It's the bottom line. Try something, anything, Orange Theory or parkour or yoga with goats, haiku or fables or portrait memoir, Zen, Tibetan, Vipassana. For me, any small action, breaking a sweat, writing a paragraph, sitting for 5 minutes makes a huge difference. I hope it will for you as well. So that's my send-off. And this is the new book. She's so pretty. She's very pink. I didn't have any input on the cover, but I kind of like her. All right. Thanks again, Rachel.
Thank you, Nita. I'm probably going to be emailing you to see if you would want to do a writing workshop for the library.
I can do that. I just can't, just couldn't be in August. I just have to watch so that it doesn't draw from the Upper Arlington since they have to have their, yeah, but oh, I'd love to do that. That would be great. Yeah,
Great.
Yeah, great. Thanks again. I'm going to turn the recording off and that's good. I have to figure out how. Okay, here I go. Bye.
Bye.